and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup. And today we are going to be talking about the new VISEART Etendu palette. This is the Paris Love Letter palette. You can see that they've got beautiful packaging on here. You know, I really like the designs that they're starting to put on these. The European versions, they've been doing like designs on their palettes for a while, and they've just recently started doing them here for the US. So packaging for this, it does come in a box, and we do have all of the shades listed on the back. Now, one thing to know about these palettes, just like the other Etendu palettes, the new GPX one and the Petit Four palettes that came out around the holidays, all of these are 1.5 gram pans, which are interchangeable. So the the pans are magnetic. You can see you've got like a little lip here, so you can lift out the pans and you can mix and match them. One of the things that I recommend if you're ever feeling overwhelmed with a large palette, just pull out the pans, create your own little quad. If you have an extra palette around, an empty palette to do that in, great. If not, I actually just use like a regular magnet. So I use, I buy spices from Penzies. So, they often send like a free magnet in there, which is a great size to fit a few eyeshadows. So, just something you can do if you're feeling a little overwhelmed with some of the larger palettes, because I personally love them. Now, this size in particular, I think is a great size for a palette. We have 12 shades and they're very nicely designed. Now, the packaging for the palette itself, okay, so you've got this little ribbon here. This is a magnetic closure, and you do have your information here. So 18 grams or 0.63 ounces. There's a 3-year shelf life, and these are made in the US. So when you open it up, you've got a mirror. It does come with one of those plastic things to peel off. And then you have this plastic tray here to kind of keep all of your dust off of the mirror and so forth. Now, I highly recommend keeping that because you can see that the side here is exposed with this packaging. So I have remembered to keep it for all except one of my palettes. So, I do try to remember to keep those. So this is the Paris Love Letter palette. This is it right side up here. And let's go ahead and we're going to start off with some swatches. I have 4 looks to share with you for this palette, and then we're also going to do some comparison swatches. So here is the first row of swatches, and this palette has 6 shimmery shades and 6 matte shades. Now you can see that this first shade here is super light on me. It's actually fantastic to put on for like a base, or I like to put it in my crease, with a bigger, fluffier brush, and then a darker shade to kind of target the actual crease area. But I think it's really nice. So it's just slightly deeper than my skin tone. And that's going to be the shade Letterbox. Next up, we have a shimmer called Beloved. And you can see here that this is going to be like a peachy champagne shimmer. It's a little ivory-ish. So it's kind of like ivory, peach, and champagne mixed together in a shimmer formula. Then the next one is called Charmed, and this is going to be a peachy shimmery shade. And then we have a matte brown. This is called Chocolatier, and this is a really nice neutral brown. So it doesn't lean cool or warm. It's pretty much right smack dab in the middle. I think overall these shades are gorgeous. So this alone would make a beautiful look on its own. This here is the second row. So these first 2 here are mattes. We have Sonnet here, which it's a little bit of a light tan brown shade with a little peach mixed in. And you can see it's got some warm tones to it. And then next to it, we have more of a pure bright peach. This is called Cupid. And you can see that there's a little hint of pink mixed in there, but it's really a true peach. Then we have Blooming, which is this beautiful, bright, shimmery green. It's like a spring green. And then we have another matte called Lovelorn. This is more of a camel shade with a little peach thrown into it. And this is the last row here. So next we have another matte. This is called Arrow, and it's a light brown. So it's got a little bit of that camel brown in there, or khaki brown, like a deep one, but it's gonna be a soft brown. There are some warm tones to this one. Then we have Poem actually. And you can see that this one is very light. It's very shimmery, and it's like a more of a pink toned champagne shade. Then we have Amour, and this is a beautiful shimmery lavender shade. And this one has a little bit of a bluish tone to it. I really like this one. And then we have Ballad, which is more of a shimmery gray, and it's kind of like a gunmetal gray. So this is the palette all on its own. So again, we have 6 shimmers and 6 mattes. And these are all a wet dry formula. Now let's go ahead and move on to some looks with this, and then we'll come back and take a look at some comparisons and my thoughts. All right, today we are playing with the new VISEART Paris Love Letter. This is one of the Etendu size palettes, so they're 1.5 gram shadows. Got the plastic cover. It comes with a piece of plastic on top of the mirror. It has a magnetic closure, and yeah, so look at this. I think this palette looks better in person than it did in the photos. You can see like real nuances in the shades here. I mean, to me in the photos, the purple and the green really stood out. But then when you look at these other shades here, you can see this one's got like a little bit of a rosy look to it. You've got like peachy shades. This is like a nice gray, even this like kind of ivory champagne-y taupe kind of shade. You know, so they all have like some subtle nuances. And the mattes in particular are more neutral than many of the other palettes that, you know, kind of have a similar like peachy vibe to them. These are more neutral. So I'm definitely excited to take a look at them up close. I'm going to start off with the Sonia G Blender Pro, and I'm going to go into this lightest shade right in the top corner. I have the VISEART eye primer on, and we're going to dust this kind of all over. And yeah, just like whatever's left on the actual lid. Now I'm taking this same brush into the shade right below it. I'm going to add a little bit more of this to the crease, and this time, you know, staying more targeted in the crease. And you can see that this has a little bit of a soft peachy hue to it. You know, originally I wanted to play with the purple today, but I really want to play with this shade and this shade. So we're going to start off with the Sonia G Soft Shader in this one. And I'm going to apply this to the inner portion here. So we're going to do this eye as is, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side using it wet. So you can see the difference, because look how light and sheer that is. So I'm now taking the Sonia G Soft Shader into this silvery, it's actually more like, you can see there's like brown and stuff in here. Wow, I love this shade. This is like, if you're looking for a really sophisticated one and done shade, this is it. Wow, look at that. I'm just gonna add a little bit more of this lighter shade right where they hit. All right, so look at that. I mean, I know it's not totally blended and everything yet, but that is so pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get the brush wet. I'm going to use the Inglot Darline, I think. Actually, we're going to use this. I picked this up and I haven't tried it yet. This is the Esom Pro Mixing Medium. So I have one of these mixing trays. I'm just going to put a couple drops of the mixing medium on the tray. So it's very, very watery. I was thinking it might be a little bit thicker, but it's not. And I'm going to use the same brush. I'm just going to get the brush wet. Right? And I'm dipping into the same shades. So this shade is still very, very light. But look at that sheen that you get now. You can definitely tell a difference. Wow, and look at this like silvery shade. It looks way more silvery and metallic, wet. Look at that difference there. That's incredible. Just getting a little bit more of the lighter shade here. Blend those together a little bit. So wet versus dry. Which one do you like better? So with this particular look, I actually like the drier side better, but you know, I can't really change that now. So we're gonna go ahead and match the eyes. So I think we're gonna amp it up just a touch by going into this peachy shade. And you know, my brush is already damp, so I'm not getting it more wet. We're just gonna put this right in the center here. So I wiped off the brush and I'm just gonna kind of tap, you know, it's still a little wet. I'm just gonna kind of tap all of these shades together so it kind of swirls a little bit. Okay, and just trying to use the cleaner side of the brush to clean up the crease a little bit. I'm taking the Synergy Pencil One. I'm gonna go into this gray shade and do this dry on the lower lash line. So it's really interesting, but when you use this shade dry, you see a little bit more like brown. It's like silvery with brownish tones, but when you go wet, it's definitely very, very silvery. So now I'm going to take the same brush, I'm going to dip it in the mixing medium, and I'm going to go into the green, and we're just going to use this for the inner corner. So I wiped the brush off and I'm just going to subtly drag that a little bit up here. So it's kind of leading towards the crease and a little bit along the lashes. So then this is my final look. I'm gonna add some eyeliner and mascara. So for eyeliner, I'm gonna use the Victoria Beckham. This is the Satin Kajal liner in the bronze shade. And I'm just going to smudge the inner corner section of that. Well, I guess a little bit of all of it with the pencil brush. Okay, so this is the final eye look from a distance. Again, I added the Victoria Beckham eye kajal in bronze and the Dior Overcurl mascara. On my face, I have mostly Westman Atelier products, the Petal Blush, Peau de Rosé Highlight, the Brulee lit up stick foundation, and then on my lips I have mostly the Chanel Rouge à Lèvres Velvet Extreme and Eclosion, which came out with the spring collection, but I also have a touch of the other shade that came out for spring, the Pivoine Noir, which is number 136. So I have this more like around the edges, but I applied Eclosion first, so it's not super noticeable. So 134 and 136. And that is everything I have on today. All right, so I have the VISEART eye primer on, and we are going to start off with this lightest shade. This is the Refer 16. Next, I'm taking the Synergy Mini Booster into the brown. So I'm going to dab a little bit of this on the outer corner here. You can see how pigmented this is. Like, I really didn't have a lot of product on. And then I'm just going to take some of this and target it in the crease area. And then today I want to experiment with these two shades. We're going to use a lighter look. So I'm using the Esom W21. I'm going to go into this more like ivory champagne shade. So I'm getting some of this in the crease and the inner corner and basically going to about the halfway point. I wiped off the brush. I'm going to go into the peach. Just going to add a little bit more. So I'm going over the brown so that way I just get a little depth there, but it's still more peachy. And there's that. So it's just like a very light, luminous eye look. And that's because I'm going with bright lipstick today. Just going to go back in with the ivory shade a little bit more and just go to kind of meet the edges here a little bit. So I'm taking my Surratt medium smoky eye brush and I'm just using this horizontally to kind of blend those shades together a little bit more. Just gives it a more seamless finish. Can you see the difference? And then under the eye, I'm actually going to take this matte peach and we're going to put that there. And I'm going to mix a little bit of this more camel shade on top of that. So I'm going slightly under the peach. Didn't really have the effect that I was hoping for. All right, next we're going in, by the way, this is the Synergy Smudger too. I'm using the brown shade for the upper lash line, and I think I'll probably use the residue on the lower lash line. Let's see. So you can see I didn't tap my brush off well enough, and I am getting a little fallout. It's not from using the shade. Technically, it's from the way that I'm swiping it along my lashes. Okay, so now I'm just taking the Synergy, this is the mini booster, and I'm just kind of feathering out the edges of the liner shade so it's like a little like more of a smokier gradient. I'm going to do that same thing down on the lower lash line. And I've wiped the brush off in between so I'm not carrying too much pigment from the upper lid. All right, so this is my final eye look. I wanted to do something light and bright, and that way the lipstick today can be the star of the show. I have the new Hermes lipsticks to try on, so this is it. I'm just gonna add some mascara and I'll see you in a minute. So this is the look from a distance, and today I have on the Chanel new Sublimage Essence Foundation, and I have shade BR12. I have the contour shade from the Burberry Essentials Glow palette along with the cream blush from Clé de Peau in number 4. And then I did set everything today with the lavender powder from Dior, and the mascara is the Lancome Lashy Doll. And for highlight, I used the Guerlain Terracotta Glow Stick highlighter in the shade Nude. And that's everything I have on so far. Okay, so today we're going to start off in this kind of camel-y shade. This is the Smith 235. You can see it's not quite, it's like a pinched crease brush, essentially. So I'm going to apply this in the crease here. And now I just turned it long ways and I'm kind of blending that out a little bit. So just a little bit. Then we're going to go into the purple shade. I'm going to use the side of this brush. And I forgot to mention I do have the VISEART, tap that better, the VISEART eye primer on today. So I'm going about 3/4 of the way. Okay, and next I'm taking the like arrowhead shape of this and to the green. Okay, and next I'm going to take my finger into this like champagne-y shade, and I'm just going to put this is like, you know, very sheer, like basically a topper. I'm just gonna dab a little bit of this right at the transition point. And also in the midline. I don't even know, you can barely see that. Oh, but it does add a little bit of extra sparkle and shine there. So you don't really see it, but you get the effect from it, if that makes sense. So this would be a soft watercolor effect. I'm kind of curious about seeing these wet. So let's go over it wet. So I'm using a little bit of the Esum mixing liquid, and I am using the same brush. So I just dipped the brush in there, and let's just see if we go in with a wet brush. If I have to do anything with the shadow, I think, yeah, just kind of patting over here. So that's gonna give me like a soft effect. So it just kind of amped it up, but still kept it with those like soft watercolors. Now if I wanna make the purple a little bit more pronounced, just going into the shadow with the wet brush, and let's see if that makes it more pronounced. All right, and now I'm just gonna add a little bit of the green with the wet brush. And I switched sides, by the way, of the brush. You can see how much more pigmented they are wet, but yet these colors themselves are still soft watercolors. So I'm wiping off the brush, and I'm just gonna kind of feather those edges where the two shades meet. And I'm taking the Rephr 23. I'm gonna dip it in the mixing medium here, and I'm gonna go back into this shade and use this for the inner corner. So where I layered the purple and green, you can kind of see when I move my eye, there's like a little bit of a color shift there. Do you see that? I think that's pretty cool. I'm going to use the same brush into the gray, and it is wet again from the mixing medium. And I'm just going to use this to line the upper lash line. So I'm twirling my brush as I use it, so I really get all of the pigment on the lid evenly distributed. So it almost looks silver there, like a deep gunmetal silver. So I wiped off the brush, and I'm not getting it wet again, but I'm going to go into the purple and the green for under the eye in the respective locations. So it might still be slightly damp, but it's not as wet as it was before. And just gonna add a little bit more of the inner corner. This particular shade is a different consistency, so it's a little bit harder to pick up the color. It's much firmer. It really feels more metallic when you touch it. Like if you touch it with your finger, it feels kind of dry, like you can feel like the metallic bits in it. Not sure how much I like that shade. All right, but this is the final eye look, and I'm gonna add some mascara. I'll see you in a second. So this is the final look from a distance. I added the Chantecaille Brightening Eye Kaujal on the lower rim and the Sisley So Stretch mascara, and I used the shade brown. On my face today, I have the new Chanel Sublimage L'Essence de Teint foundation in BR12, along with the cream blush from Kjaer Weis in Blossoming, and the La Mer, the Glow highlighter that came out last year. On my lips, I have the new Hermes lipstick in number 43, Rose Oasis. And we're doing a wear test on the foundation today. So I've got this side powdered with the Chanel loose powder in shade 12, and this side has no powder. All right, today we're going to be doing a vertical gradient eye, and I'm going to start off with the Refer 16. I'm going to go into this first shade here. Just going to take the very tip of the 16 into the peach here. So I knocked off some of the powder on the edges, and I'm just going to very softly add this to the crease. But you can see that I'm barely touching the lid because I don't want to spread it out too much. Just want a little touch of that peachy shade there. Next, I'm going to spray the Esom V31 just with some Evian water. So I sprayed it and I just gently wiped it on the cloth so it's damp but not super wet. We're going to go into this gray shade here. I'm going to put this along the lash line, and it's going to be fairly close to the lash line, but I chose this brush because it's not super thin. Now that that has had a moment to dry, I'm taking the Refer 12, and you can see it's just a like domed pencil brush, and I'm just gonna kind of soften the edges of this and kind of blend the gray upward a little bit so I have it transition. So then the rest of the shadows I'm gonna use dry. And we're just gonna go up this particular column, starting with the purple, then the green, then the peachy shimmery shade. So I'm using the Refer 12, and I'm just gonna go right above the gray where it kind of started to blend out. Moving on to the green. And I'm trying to kind of feather the green and the purple edges together, so it's a soft transition. And now I'm moving on to the peach. So now I kind of have this soft like rainbow effect. I'm going to dampen the brush 12. I'm going to take this into the peach and just dab this on the inner corner. So I'm just kind of dragging that up to meet the peach shade a little bit. Drag that on the lower lash line just a touch. And then I'm just taking the Surratt Smoky Eye Brush. This is the medium size, and just kind of softly dragging this across. And brush 12 is pretty much dry now. I'm just going to go into the shimmery, like champagne shade. It's kind of like an ivory champagne. Just going to get a little bit of this up and stick this right under the brow here. Just kind of trace that line a little. I'm just taking the Refer 16 and just softly diffusing that so it kind of blends a little bit better with the crease area. Now, because the brush was still slightly damp when I put the underbrow highlight on, that area is still going to stay a little bit more vibrant than the part that I blended out, which now will have like a little bit of a soft transition, but still kind of this like more blinding area. You can see that there. So for upper lash liner, I'm taking, this is the Bed Nye RS0 brush. I'm just gonna spray it with some water, and then I'm gonna go into the matte brown. So I just went into this brown shade here, and I'm just gonna put this close along the lash line. And I'm twirling my brush as I go. Just drag that up just a touch. So I'm just taking, this is a brush, this is a W21 brush from Esom, just kind of moving that little baby wing type thing that I put there. Not quite a wing, it's not really enough there, but just kind of moving that up. So that way I've got a little, it's just like a little light one. So this is the final look up close. Finish my makeup and I'll see you in a minute to go over. And this is the final look from a distance. So I did add one more thing. I added this shade here, this kind of like camel-y peachy shade to the rest of the lower lash line here. It just looked incomplete. So I just smudged a little bit of that on there on the outer 3/4. And that's it. On the rest of my face, I have on the cream contour from the Burberry Essential Glow palette, as well as the Merit Complexion Stick in Silk. For powder, I set it with the Koh Gen Do Pink Brightening Moisture Powder. And then I have on the new Burberry mascara, the Sisley Beige Manhattan lipstick, and the blush and highlight are the Sisley #1 Pink Peony and #6 Shimmer. And I have the Surratt brow pomade on in light brown. And that's everything. All right, so for some comparisons, I know a lot of people have been asking whether or not this palette here, which is the Mel Thompson and Sydney Grace palette, is similar, because you can see right off the bat when you look at these color stories, they do have some similar looking shades. You've got kind of like the peach, the purple, the green, but I think you can see right away that, first of all, the Mel Thompsons are matte. They're also a little bit more vibrant, whereas the VISEART are going to be like softer versions. So let's go ahead and we're just going to swatch a few of these. We're going to swatch the green, the purple, and the peach just to see how they compare. So here's the green, purple, and peach from the Mel Thompson palette. And you can see here that this green is going to be a deeper green than this. There's definitely a little bit more yellow in the VISEART one, and it's a softer, lighter shade compared to this. The lavender shade is a little bit more similar, but again, this one's going to be more bright. It's a little brighter, and there's also like a little bit more pink in this purple. And then the peach, you can see, is really more going to be like a combination between these two shades than it is on its own. These are definitely more pigmented than the VISEARTs. This is the VISEART Theory palette in Amethyst, and you can see here that the purple shade, sorry about that, is kind of a mix of these two here. I'm going to swatch these. And then this is the one from Paris Love Letter. So although they looked kind of like they might be more similar, actually the Theory palette has more pink in them. So the Love Letter is more blue toned. It's more lilac purple. VISEART has some other palettes out that kind of have this like peachy vibe and so forth to them, this warm peachy vibe. I actually don't have any of those. So we're gonna compare just the shades that I do have. This is the Paris Edit. And here's Love Letter. So you can see you've got a few of similar tones to it, like this pink shade here looks a little similar. This matte shade above it kind of looks a little similar. But in general, this is going to be more like pink and mauve tone compared to like the peachier tones. But let's go ahead and swatch those. So here are these two. I'm going to put them right here so you can kind of see them closer to there. So you can see that this is going to be pinker versus the peachy shade. And the brown shade is going to be more of a mix of this one and this one together in the Paris Edit. Next, we have the Petit Four Lilas palette, and I wanted to compare this gray shade with these two more metallic grays. Okay, so here are the two grays. We're going to put them right here. And you can see that there is some similarity. This is kind of like, it fits right in between there with tone and depth. So a little bit lighter and brighter, also has a little bit more of a lavender shade to it, whereas this deeper one in the Lila's palette is going to be darker, and it also has a little bit of a brown glint to it compared to this one. This one has like a slight touch of that, but yeah, I mean, they look like they could be sisters. Okay, so we've got the Petit Four in chocolate or chocolat and praline. And then here's Paris Love Letter. So again, these shades, you can see some that look vaguely similar, but really this is like neutral, and these are going to be like a little cooler and a little warmer. You know, a little cooler for praline here and a little warmer here for chocolat. So this really kind of fits right in between those, but we're going to swatch a couple of these for comparison. We'll swatch these browns here. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and swatch this whole praline quad. So here's praline. We're going to put these, we'll put those two right there. You can see that shade a little similar there. And then I'll put the other two right up top. So, you know, none of those are really going to be dupes. And then the closest shade in Chocolat is this one. So let's swatch this one here. And let's see, we're going to put that right here in between these two. And yeah, you can see for sure that it's warmer and got a little bit more peach mixed into it. It's actually more of like a rusty shade. There's more red in it. That is everything for my comparisons. If you have additional shades that you're interested in, let me know. Let's go ahead and talk about this palette in general. And I have to say that I am really happy with this color story. I love these like peachy tones and so forth, but most of the time peachy shades are just a little bit too warm in the undertones for me. And these are much more neutral. It's much more neutral than it looks in the photos online, in my opinion. So I'm very, very happy with this palette. And I love how they have got a little bit of coolness, a little bit of warmth in some of the shades, but the majority of the mattes really are pretty neutral here. So shade wise, I mean, I have to say, I think my favorite shade is actually this gray one, Ballot. I think this is just so gorgeous. And of course I love the purple more. I really like the green. I thought I would like it more than I do, but it's a little bit lighter. Even when I put it on, you know, wet, it's still not quite as vibrant as I was thinking it would be. So I still like it. I love the shade. It's just not as great as I thought it was going to be. The only shade formula-wise that I've had an issue with in this palette is this one here, which is Poem or Poem. And this one is, you know, it's a little bit more hard pressed than the other shimmers. It's not quite as creamy. And I was able to like kind of develop hard pan on that pretty quickly. So to clean that up a little bit better, but it's more of a topper shade. And I was expecting it to be a little bit more pigmented than it is, but that's this one here. So I like it and I use it, but I feel like the formula just isn't consistent with the others. Other shades that I absolutely love, I really love this first shade here. Actually, I love these two shimmers as well. This top row is fantastic. This matte brown is so easy to use and so easy to work with. I really love mixing this with the gray. I'm not sure if I did a look with the two of them mixed, but they look so nice together. I really like that contrast. So, you know, if anybody's interested, we can do that in like a get ready with me or something. But in general, these like more like camel-y shades are ones that I don't typically gravitate to because again, they're usually a little bit warmer in tone than I like on myself. But these ones actually have such neutral undertones and I found that they're really easy to work with. And I'm really glad that they were incorporated into this palette because it makes it so easy to wear. And one of the things I love about this palette, and VISEART in general usually does this with the palette, but they have a mix of a pretty fairly even mix of matte and shimmer shades. And I think that's useful because if you're like trying to do like just a sophisticated work look, You've totally got plenty of nice mattes here to make like a neutral eye look. You've got the brighter shimmers and so forth for a pop of color. They look great if you want to do like an all matte eye and then just add a pop of shimmer in the corner. It's gorgeous. And I love how there's like business and fun. So it's just a really nice mix. And I think the undertones in this particular palette really make this one something worth picking up. So one thing I wanted to note is this purple shade here actually pairs very nicely with the Etendu Violette palette. So let me just show you that palette real quickly. So this is the Violette Etendu palette. This is the first one they came out with in this size. And you can see here that you've got a lot of purples. You've got cooler tones, warmer tones, and so forth. You've got kind of this beautiful like pink and blue duochrome here. And you can see here that this more like lavender shade actually fits in very, very well with these, particularly this one here, which is kind of like a deeper blue tone purple. You can see it's much more vibrant, but I think they pair very nicely. It kind of makes a very, if this were like a Dior Quint, we could just add it to this corner right here. So just wanted to share, you know, that those are definitely things that I think would mix really well together. And in general, you know, mixing the shades from this palette with this one, I think it's a very nice touch. Another thing that I really like about this palette is it's very easy to get light, soft washes of color, something that looks kind of like a watercolor or something just very light and effortless looking, but it's also easy to build it up and get something more dramatic. So this palette really has a nice range to it. So I will have all purchasing information for this palette down below in the description box. I purchased mine from Camera Ready Cosmetics. And one of the things I like to do is always get to the free shipping threshold. So I either add in like a random eye brush or something like that, something to get to that. Or this time I was excited. They have singles from Lethal Cosmetics. So I picked up a couple of these to try. I think they're really pretty. So we're gonna have to try these sometime. So we have this shade here, which is called Ether. And then we have Enigma. I'm very excited to try these. And I believe this palette is also available. I know it's on Muse Beauty Pro, and I think, you know, sometimes they do those bundle deals with like a brush or something like that. And I'm pretty sure they have a few of those. So I'll leave those down below in the description box. And then I think Beautylish has this, and I'm not sure about Sephora yet, but I believe it's coming. So if you're, you know, considering this palette, keep in mind the Sephora VIB day sale dates have been posted. It's for Rouge April 9th through 19th, and then VIB, and that's gonna be 20%. VIB is 15%. That is, I think, the 13th through the 19th. And then the Insider, I forget, it might be the 15th through the 19th, but that's 10%. So definitely something to consider. I hope this review was helpful, and if you have any questions or comments about it, please be sure to leave them down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Button's right down below, and be sure to hit that notification bell as well so you know when my next video will be up. I have to say that I really love this palette. Anastasia Sparrow, who's like the head of VISEART, one of the founders, she does a fantastic job curating colors and color stories here. And one of the things I really like is the attention to detail, how they really listen to their consumers, and how things can easily be rearranged and mixed and matched. So if you haven't tried VISEART shadows yet, I would definitely recommend it. They have probably my favorite matte eyeshadow formula on the market. They are fantastic, easy to use. Their shimmers are great also. It's just a really well-rounded product. And yeah, I'm really happy with these. So thank you so much and have a great day. I'll see you very soon, and stay safe and healthy.